Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the WealthTech Insider. I'm Daniela Grand, and today I'm joined by our very own Peter Warren, and we thought we would have a chat to you today about AI. So AI is in our LinkedIn news feeds. Every second post seems to be on AI at the moment. ChatGPT is obviously, sort of becoming a little bit embedded into our business, I feel. And we just wanted to sort of give you some insights into what's going on at the moment, the current state of play, and give you some tips on how to think about AI.
Thanks, Danny. We'll try and keep this as simple as we can and to the point, because you can easily get lost in the weeds of AI, but it's coming up every meeting, isn't it, at the moment? Seriously.
Yes,
Every
it
prospect
is.
meeting, every speaking invitation, AI. so, um, so we're trying to walk this fine line, right, between being on it and interested and engaged, but being realistic about where we are in
Mhm.
the adoption cycle and cautious, because we deal in a sector that manages people's money, and I think AI's still got some way to go, right, before we can get really, really comfortable with how we use it.
Yeah.
So just put it out there. Fanura's on a journey too, like everyone with this
Mhm.
stuff, on behalf of their clients. And I don't know what you think, but there is a shiny toy mentality in our sector a little bit, I
Yeah,
find.
there is. And look, I don't blame advice businesses for being confused because there is
Yeah,
there are a lot of shiny toys. The demos are always really great, which is good. And our tech is working really hard to obviously solve problems
mm,
in advice businesses, which is something that we really want to see. But I think, as always, we always say, take the path of least resistance because whilst the tech does sort of, look to solve a problem, there's all these other things happening, beneath the surface there, not even beneath
yeah,
the surface, right in front of our very eyes, really. Especially if you look at, I always look at the pain that back offices go through. With a lot of our clients, we have our discovery sessions and the client service teams are drowning. They're working on
100%.
weekends. They're, but most of the time also, they do have technology there in the business, but they're just not aware of what it can do potentially to help them. They're not using it very well. Whatever has happened in that business
Yeah,
has left it. Seems to always be the CSOs that are drowning in the background there, and I feel there's a bit of a disconnect with what they perceive is going on versus what other people in the business are doing different roles potentially
yeah,
perceive as important and that sort of thing. So
yeah,
I
it
think
is. Yeah. It's interesting, if you do, let's face it, it is business owners, it is advisors that are really interested in this stuff more than back office staff, in our opinion, because
Mhm.
they're so
Mhm.
drowned with their day to day. They're not thinking about AI and stuff. As you said, they're just trying to keep up and not have to work on the weekends. So, yeah, but interesting enough, it's actually the back office staff that are probably the ones that are going to be the main experts in AI in the future. They're the ones that are going to retool, retrain, and find all sorts of really cool things to do with AI. It won't necessarily be the
Yeah,
advisors.
definitely.
So, yeah, maybe all these study tours have got something to do with it, that happen across the industry to the
Yeah.
US, which are good and bad. I just think there's too many of them. So I just thought, and I still remember it's about a year to the day, I think, where we actually demoed ChatGPT for the first time to a group of advisors. Remember that session in Melbourne we ran? I
Yeah.
thought, oh, gee, this session's a bit dry. I'll throw something in the mix. And ChatGPT had been released a week prior, I think it was, the
Mhm.
public release. And so obviously no advisors say. So I think for many people, it was the first time they'd actually seen it. And, the minds were blown, and it derailed the session for a good couple of hours.
Do you
So,
remember you said you were actually showing Midjourney
yes.
and what
Yeah.
Midjourney can do on Discord, and you asked the audience to come up with anything, a visual of something, and
Mm,
it was like an alien flying through the clouds
yeah,
with a rainbow on a sunny day or something like that, and all
I
these
know.
images came up,
Yeah.
and
And
minds were
now
blown. Yeah,
And even then, Midjourney's not used anymore. Everyone uses DALL-E
yeah.
off the ChatGPT app now. My kids had a lot of fun on the weekend coming up with all sorts of weird images of water slides with toilets at the bottom, I think was the theme of the day. So, yeah. But look, that's all the gimmicky stuff. But let's talk about the utility of it. So,
Mm.
last week, OpenAI, who are the crowd responsible for ChatGPT, who Microsoft have a strategic stake in, sort of did their first really big product release last week. So real enhancements to what they're offering, and sort of they're on this evolution from being a pure engineering startup company to start looking more and more like a platform company. So
Mm-hmm.
things that really struck me about their keynote, and I encourage anyone who wants to geek out on this stuff to watch the keynote. It's only 45 minutes, so just go open AI keynote in YouTube and you'll find it. But it was very Apple-like. So it was very much, there was big black screens with simple, crisp white words showing what OpenAI is going to be doing for the future. It felt like a phone launch was how I would describe it. And this is, for me, this was the real step of OpenAI coming out of its engineering shell and becoming a product platform business that people can understand and relate to. So, and I felt it was just so visceral, this linkage with Apple, what they're trying to do. And I guess if you go back 20 years ago, Apple was setting the tone for tech globally. It
Yeah.
was putting out, so I think OpenAI is trying to command that position. And what did they launch? So they launched a whole bunch of new AI models, including a turbo version of their ChatGPT, which a lot of people probably wouldn't understand what that really means, but effectively means faster, cheaper, consuming less energy, more efficient is what these models are. As many of you know, ChatGPT consumes an awful lot of computing power, which is
Mm-hmm.
why these companies have had to raise so much capital to do it. So the real name of the game now is for these large language models. What runs these AI models is to become more efficient in their coding and how they develop, to reduce that burden on on the computing power. So they've leaned right into this. They were talking very much about developer frameworks. So their view is they want people building chat GPTs on top of chat GPTs is how they described it, which is effectively building your own bots on chat GPT, which you can now do. I did that on the weekend. I built a little Finura bot on chat GPT, so which we won't be
What did
making.
it do?
So
What
I
are we
just
supposed to do with
put, yeah, great question. So I put a bunch of our thought leadership in there,
that? Mm-hmm.
and it could basically write like it was me pretty efficiently.
Right. Okay.
Perspective. So it's just a very refined version of ChatGPT, which is just
Mm-hmm.
really putting on your knowledge bank and what you put into it. And historically, you could do those things, but you were very much using these GPT wrappers, these apps, these plugins, which were a little bit difficult to use and didn't work properly. But what OpenAI are really trying to become is the app store for AI, is how I would describe it.
Okay.
So it's, I am sure there is literally already millions of GPTs that have already been built in the last week. I can't wait for the data that comes out about how quickly this has been adopted. It'll feel like
Yeah.
that. It'll make the launch of the Apple Store look like like a kid's fate compared to what
Right.
it's going to look like. So I'm sort of, yeah, gee, if we thought it was frothy a week ago, it's gotten frothier said. And where we're at is that a lot of the AI wrappers that were sort of being built out there were very much things that were filling gaps in ChatGPT's capabilities. So things that you couldn't do on the interface, where now it's different. Now it's about using their infrastructure and building your own custom bots. Um, OpenAI will also, in their app store very soon, have the ability to charge for those bots.
Mm-hmm.
So a whole lot of companies build custom bots using their content, their services, and charge for that as part of it. And of course, OpenAI will take a split of the revenue in the same way the Apple Store takes their revenue. Yep.
So if we're talking about applying that to an advice business, for example, what are we looking at here? Like, where would that fit into the advice journey? I'm sort of thinking, we talk about the back office and that main engine room. How does how does a bot or creating a bot on ChatGPT help the back office potentially? So let's for example think about, submitting an application to a product provider and
Yep.
following it up and actually implementing that particular recommendation.
So the most obvious thing I can think of right now is if you have all your policies and procedures documented, so the way you do business documented, you will be able to build your own chat GPT bot for your business, which effectively consumes all that content, and it would allow people to have a bot running on their screen at all times saying, how do I do this? So it would be used for training on onboarding of staff and provide people with an ability to, basically ask at any point, how do we do these things? It would be a very
Okay.
simple use case in that perspective. Um, there would be a temptation, I'm sure, and I'll be really cautious about this, is that it could consume some of your old advice documents, for example,
Mhm.
and could help reproduce new versions of those advice documents with a different
Mhm.
slant to those things as well. So it's a bit like it's a little bit of a Pandora's box, Danny, in terms of how people are going to use it. I'd strongly discourage that particular usage, but I think inevitably someone's going to do it and try to do it.
Yeah.
But I genuinely feel it's going to be really, really good at consuming like, those policies, procedures, those things that, the idea of having a manual is gone. It'll be able to
Mhm.
document all that stuff really efficiently for people. There is also, they've built some apps out of the box, GPT, so they've built some stuff that you can just use. So one of them is a data-based one, and I played around with it on the weekend. I put some, just some cash flow information, some general sort of income and expenses from, a horrible CSV extract, and changed it all. And it completely sorted the data out for me and gave me a nice income and expenses chart for a
So it gave
household
you
over a
your
6 month
own
period.
BI tool kind of thing.
Yeah, it'll do all
Yeah.
that. So, you know, and I just get the feel, I just can't wait to see what developers are going to do with this, because they now have an infrastructure. They've done some stuff with the OpenAI APIs, which will make it a lot easier for developers to build, a lot cheaper. So they're making it super cheap to build software on OpenAI now. And so I just feel like we're at day one of a multi-decade journey with this thing. And
Mhm.
I kind of think about the first app store. Remember the first apps you download on your iPhone? I remember the ones I used were the Lightsaber app, was you'd move the
Mhm.
phone, make stupid
Yeah, that
noises.
was a cool. Yeah.
There was a beer drinking app, it was like on the screen and you drink, like,
You could water
so
your plants.
yeah, yeah. So I think we're going to see a lot of that nonsense initially,
Mhm.
relative nonsense. And then it's as some of the larger companies, larger software companies really start to think about this stuff, we're going to see some really cool things come out. So I would expect that you're going to see businesses have their own bots running with their own content, their own sort of policies, procedures, processes, ways of engaging clients running automated. I know of people who are building like personal assistant bots, basically trained
Mhm.
complete how they do business as consultants, for example,
Yep.
and giving those bots access to their APIs on how to schedule meetings, how to do things. So I think we haven't even scratched the surface of what's going to happen. The big thing for WealthTech will be is how do we deploy these bots in client-facing scenarios? I think there's all sorts of opportunities potentially for client portal providers, platform providers to start using, contextual bots in there using
Mhm.
OpenAI to help. So a really cool use case would be if I was a platform provider, I had an investment report. Like Hub24 had this review report, and actually advisors really like it because put a
Mhm.
simple graph there the client can understand. But let's say my clients are non-English speaking clients and not very financial literate. Well, you could use a bot using ChatGPT to put it in any language in really, really simple terms that someone who was a mechanic for 30 years in Beijing would understand, who'd never
Yeah.
understand superannuation before. Just things like that. You go, wow, how cool is
Yeah.
that? So I I think again, I think we're at that real gimmicky stage still, but
Yeah.
as the power of it evolves more and more, we'll see really interesting use cases. Going to see a lot of startups selling bots and trying to make quick money, like the apps were. Maybe you have to pay like $6 for a lightsaber app, and just
Mhm.
stuff you would never pay for today. So
Yeah.
I think we'll see a lot of that, and I think it'll be short term. It'd be like the dog walking apps and just apps for everything. And I think the companies that are going to have the most power and influence, the ones that have lots of customers already. big software companies, big platform providers, superannuation funds. It'd be amazing what they can do with it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Do you think, from a regulatory perspective, the US government has signed, I think it was a 111-page executive order last week, or recently, around putting guidelines around the correct usage around these technologies.
Mm.
Things that happen in the US typically, will flow on into Australia, and we'll sort of copy what they're doing. How do you think that's going to impact things? Should we be going out and just creating these or using these technologies in our businesses, or should we be waiting, or should we be at least thinking about how we're going to ethically use these GPTs in our businesses? What sort of frameworks should we be working under? I feel like, it's so exciting. We just want to go out and just use it all and have a crack with everything. But we've got to be really careful, right, with privacy and
Yeah.
data collection and all those sort of things, and sharing our sensitive information. That sort of, for me, is a bit of a, something that we need to be really aware of, rather than sort of going gung ho and
Mm.
getting super, super excited and throwing this into our practices without sort of thoughtfully thinking about how it's going to work for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'll be looking closely to what the medical profession does with it initially, because a lot of uses for AI in the medical profession. AI
Yeah.
will. I mean, gee, if I was a radiologist right now, I'd be pretty nervous,
Yeah.
because AI will be able to read X-rays really well, I'd imagine. So ethical use of AI will be, I'm sure, front and center of every large medical school, you can think of, around how do we handle this. The legal profession as well. This is what being a profession's about, actually. You can think about it. It's actually about not waiting for a government or a regulator to say what you can and can't do. It's actually putting the client at the center of everything, going, you know
Mhm.
what? If I was a client, how would I want AI used? Knowing what I know or what I don't know about AI, what would I do? And I would suggest that most advice clients, irrespective of their age, would be pretty nervous if their advisors were using AI with or without their data. Um,
Yeah. I agree. I'm a little on the fence with avatars at the moment. I
mm,
can sort of see that there is a use case for avatars, but at the end of the day, we've got such a personal, financial advisors have such a personal relationship with their clients. And I'm with you. If you were my advisor and you were sending me a link to your avatar, giving me the advice, I mean, we've already had this conversation, and we had a public LinkedIn photo, I think, of me reacting to to an avatar that
and fair enough.
yeah, at Microsoft
wasn't
Teams
my,
meeting.
wasn't my best day. It was quite humbling.
No, but I think,
Yeah,
that, we really need that personal touch. I think we can use it, certainly to drive the actual advice journey and all that stuff that happens in the background.
yeah,
Absolutely. Really, really worthwhile. But in terms of that face-to-face interaction with our clients, it's such personal stuff we're talking about, isn't it?
yeah. And I actually think, rightly or wrongly, that advice is a luxury good. It's a luxury
Mm.
service.
Mhm.
Um, and as digital advice becomes more prevalent, face-to-face holistic advice will become even more of a perceived luxury for people to have. To have
Yeah.
a personal financial advisor would arguably become more of a thing, right? Potentially. So therefore, they're going to want that. They're not going to want a bloody avatar.
Mm.
And from talking to advisors, there are still clients who are nervous about being recorded on
Yeah.
Teams, having their meetings recorded. And you know what? We're just trying to nudge clients to get used to this technology.
Mhm.
And there's an adoption curve, right, with all this stuff. Frankly, there's people like me who throw caution to the wind and just have a crack at anything and not, but I'm not, I'm in the 5%.
Mhm.
The majority of people are late adopters or laggards who are naturally suspicious and cautious, and that's totally fine. And we have to cater to their needs as well. And I think this is where some of the wealth tech AI kind of providers, I think they're missing that piece.
Mhm.
There's an irrational human at the end of every interaction,
Yeah.
and you have to cater to their fears, their fears and their desires. And their fear with AI is that their data gets out there, that the computer's in control. And these are the same people that would not use a Tesla self-driving car at all.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think responsible disclosure of AI usage will become a thing for financial advisors. I'm going to raise it at the FAAA conference next week to say,
Mhm.
how do we, who's thinking about this? Because I am. And I think if we got to a point where businesses had to disclose they're using AI for any part of their operations to a client, I think it would bring a lot of this AI experimentation to a grinding halt, personally.
Mhm. Yeah, and I do think that's a good guideline, right? If we're going to go down the regulatory path with ethical use of AI, then absolutely, I feel like that is something that should be a part of that.
Yeah. And
And
so I think, sorry.
oh, sorry, I was just going to say, going back to your point of, the laggards, and with adopting technology, we still, I think pretty much we could probably say 100% of our clients I don't think I'm being ambitious by saying that, are still emailing sensitive documents to their clients. I'm pretty sure it's
Yep.
probably 100%. Um, so, I think, that's a cybersecurity risk. That's a really becoming an antiquated way of doing things.
Mm.
We even have SharePoint where we can share links privately to our clients, which is a more secure way of doing that.
Yep.
We're not moving into the Microsoft environment, but still emailing. So, yeah, I think you're right. With our clients, we really need to think of the human at the end of all of this. Human advisor as well, who's also,
Yep.
going to be wary of this technology, and human client at the end. And the
Yeah.
humans
It's
in
not,
between that are involved with this advice journey.
yeah, totally. And they're paying a premium for your time and service. I don't know many advice firms that think you're reducing their fees anytime soon.
Mhm.
Definitely ones that want to reduce their costs to deliver, and that's fine. And there's some low hanging fruit always there with those things. So I think the AI experimentation. If I was running a business at the moment, really into this stuff, I'd probably be looking at strictly for the time being at content generation for marketing and education purposes. I think AI is awesome for that. Saves you having a blank sheet of paper, and these GPTs will get better. They'll be trained on industry technical content, and you can do that stuff far more efficiently. But that's, it's not personalized, just general information, all of
Mhm.
that. And then the next one's going to be when we finally, if and when we all get access to Microsoft's Copilot infrastructure through 365, where it's really secure. It'll surface data from your SharePoint, all those things. You'll have meetings come out of the clients. It'll show you all the documents relevant to that client, at that time. It'll be really important. And the final one will be for data cleanup purposes. It will make data cleanup a hell of a lot easier on Microsoft
Mhm.
Excel, sorting out
'Cause
data.
that's a
So
horrible job, right? That's a
it's a
nightmare.
terrible, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we always outsource it, and AI can do a lot of that work for us now. So they're things that are sort of behind the scenes that the client, frankly, doesn't care about, and nor should they, and they shouldn't be paying for in the first place. So if most businesses could just start with those three things and wait to see what comes.
Mhm.
And again, I reiterate that we really see AI as it's a feature, not a product. It will become a ubiquitous feature of every software platform you currently use.
Yeah, agreed. Even Teams, I think, we can be doing stuff in Teams, even if we don't have the access to the Copilot
Yeah.
environment at the moment. We can use Teams. We use it to transcribe our meetings, which is amazing. We don't
Yep.
need to take down notes anymore. We can also read the room with Teams. It'll read the room of with the feelings and of
Yeah.
our participants in our
It'll
meetings,
it'll
which is
it'll now also give you a meeting summary if you're running late to a meeting. When you log into Teams, it'll tell you what's happened so far, give you a quick update. Which
yeah.
is,
So those things are all
I don't think we should be rewarding people that are late to meetings personally, but look, for some people that'll be really helpful.
yeah, especially a Teams meeting. Limited
Yeah.
excuses to be late to a Teams meeting.
Yeah.
So
And
I think
we did a, yeah. And when I encourage people, we did a webinar with Microsoft a week or so ago, which showed all that capability. So I encourage people to go through on our socials. We might put a link to it on the podcast notes, and people can check out that webinar, because we actually had the team from Microsoft showing all that capability, which was awesome. So yeah.
yeah, yeah, pretty amazing, and it's already there, and we're paying for it already, so we may as well
Yeah. Yeah.
take a little look into that. All right. As always, we want some key takeaways for our advice businesses.
Well, so I think,
Sorry.
look, if you are interested, check out check out the keynote from OpenAI. So just Google OpenAI keynote on YouTube and watch it and just sort of see what they were talking about. Understand that we are still in that really early stage. So it's okay to be patient. And it's come so far in such a short period of time. Your patience will be rewarded not too distant future. And I think the final point is you're going to start getting AI experiences through the software you're already using. So Microsoft's obviously example. Canva's got AI built into it now. Even this podcasting software you're using now has AI in it, Danny, right? Has AI features, which we're playing around with. So think of it that way. And I hope just that will scratch your itch that you've got to feel like you're in the AI world. You already are. And you don't need to be sort of throwing caution to the wind on AI experimentation when you can do stuff safely today. So that'd be my big takeaways.
I just wanted to clarify that this is actually you and this is actually me when we're not using AI to replace ourselves yet.
Sadly, Danny, you've got the OG.
On our podcast. You might be lucky enough to get that in the future. We're not quite there yet.
Well, but I mean, I will say from playing around with it and following some of the developers that we follow on developer platforms, there are people literally building bots of themselves. So we're in a really interesting time, and it'll just be fascinating to see particularly what kids like 19, 20-year-old really smart grads coming out with this technology who just assume this is the way the world's always been, will do with it. So we're going to have, even as Finura, we're going to have a really open mind. But again, I hark back to the fact that we are in a professional services industry that manages people's money, and we need to think in the same way I think that the medical profession is.
Yeah, agreed. I'll always sound like a broken record.
Doctors, not the pharmaceutical companies, doctors.
Just to clarify there. I will always sound like a broken record here, but I think go back to your foundational stuff, do the boring stuff first, look at your existing tech stack, get that right, make sure your processes are right. The AI isn't going to work as well as it could if you don't have that foundational tech correct, and get your team involved in those decisions as well.
100%.
All right. Thanks for listening to another episode of the WealthTech Insider. If you haven't already, you can take our health check. You can find that at www.finurogroup.com, and we look forward to catching up with you next time.